Okay folks, buckle up, because tonight on the Mysteria Archive, we're diving into an idea that sounds impossible and maybe a little dangerous. Not time travel, not the afterlife, but the possibility that consciousness never experiences its own ending. Get ready for a wild ride. The moment that never ends. You're driving home late. Rain streaks the windshield. Headlights cut tunnels through the dark. Your mind drifts, autopilot on. Then it happens. Impact. Metal folds, glass explodes. The world goes white. For a split second, everything freezes. Sound drops out. Time stretches thin. And then you blink. You're still driving. The road is empty. No crash, no sirens. Just rain and breath and the hum of the engine. Your heart's racing, but you're alive. Here's the question no one asks out loud. What if you didn't survive that crash? What if somewhere else, in another version of reality, you didn't make it, and your awareness simply continued in the version where you did? Not reincarnation, not an afterlife, just continuity. This is quantum immortality, the idea that death may be real for everyone else, but never something you can experience yourself. Because every time reality offers an ending, consciousness might quietly take the only remaining path forward. And if that's true, then maybe the most terrifying thing about death is that it never feels like it happens. Okay, yeah, that's a heavy way to start, I know. And before anyone panics, this isn't about predicting crashes or tempting fate. This is a thought experiment, one physicists use to poke at the weirdest corners of quantum theory. And what makes it unsettling is that it's not mystical, it's math. It grows out of real interpretations of quantum mechanics that scientists still argue about today. So don't worry, we're not saying you're invincible. We're saying that reality might be way stranger than lights out end credits. And if that makes you slightly uncomfortable, good. That means it's working. Schrödinger's door. In 1935, physicist Erwin Schrödinger tried to expose just how absurd quantum mechanics had become. He imagined a sealed box. Inside it, a cat. Also inside, a radioactive atom, a detector, and a vial of poison. If the atom decays, the detector triggers, the poison releases, and the cat dies. If it doesn't decay, the cat lives. Quantum math says that until someone opens the box, the atom exists in a superposition, decayed and not decayed at the same time. Which means the cat is mathematically alive and dead. Now, this wasn't meant to be taken literally. It was a warning. Schrödinger was saying, look how strange this gets if we take the equations seriously. But physicists did take them seriously. Now, the Copenhagen Interpretation says that when an observer opens the box, the wave collapses. Reality chooses one outcome. One cat survives, one doesn't. Now, the Many Worlds Interpretation says something far stranger. The wave never collapses. Instead, reality splits. In one branch, the cat lives. In another, it dies. Both are real, both continue. Now, here's where the door creaks open. What happens when the observer isn't outside the box? What happens when you are the cat? If consciousness is required to observe reality, then the moment consciousness ends can never be observed by the one experiencing it. From the inside, there is only continuation. Only the branch where awareness still exists. Every outcome where consciousness stops, they happen somewhere else. Quantum immortality doesn't claim you can't die. It suggests something subtler, that awareness may only ever experience survival. Not because you're special, but because there's no version of experience left to notice the alternative. Now, Schrödinger absolutely did not invent this to make us existentially spiral at 2 a.m. He was actually mocking how weird quantum theory sounded when scaled up. But here's the problem. The math never stopped being correct. The moment you ask, what if the observer is inside the system, things get uncomfortable fast. Because now physics isn't just about particles, it's about experience. And no, this doesn't mean you're a superhero cat with 9 lives. It means consciousness might have a loophole, and physics hates loopholes, but it keeps finding them. The Many Worlds Machine. In 1957, a quiet graduate student named Hugh Everett III did something radical. He looked at quantum mechanics and said, what if we're wrong about collapse? Instead of particles choosing a single outcome, Everett suggested something far stranger. Every quantum event creates all possible outcomes. Reality does not decide, it multiplies. Flip a coin. In one universe it lands heads, in another tails. Take a step. In one branch you hesitate, in another you don't. Zoom out far enough, and existence becomes a constantly branching structure, splitting with every interaction, every choice, every heartbeat. This became known as the many worlds interpretation. Now here's the unsettling part. If reality branches infinitely, then for every moment where something goes wrong, there's another branch where it doesn't. And if consciousness can only experience moments where it continues, then awareness might naturally follow those surviving branches. A quantum immortality lives right here. It doesn't say your body can't fail. It says awareness might never encounter the branch where it does. From the outside, this looks ordinary. People age, people die. Statistics behave exactly as expected. But from the inside, experience is continuous. There is always a next moment. Each time danger appears, the universe quietly forks. Most paths end, one doesn't. And that one is the only one you ever know. No miracle, no guardian force, just probability, endlessly splitting, until awareness has only one place left to go. If that sounds cold, it is. Many worlds doesn't care about meaning. It only cares about math. And mathematically speaking, if enough worlds exist, survival is never impossible, just increasingly rare. Okay, so this is where things either click or people bail out completely. Now, many worlds is elegant, but it's also terrifying because it removes drama. No destiny, no final curtain, just branching spreadsheets of reality. And physicists argue about this constantly. Some love it, some hate it. Important reminder though, this is not proof you're immortal. It's a logical consequence of one interpretation of quantum math. Think of it less like you live forever and more like experience has no rewind button. Also, if you're picturing infinite versions of yourself doing infinite dumb things, yeah, that's unfortunately included. Copenhagen versus continuity. Now we hit the standoff. On one side, the Copenhagen interpretation. On the other, many worlds. Now, Copenhagen says reality is undecided until it's observed. When you look, probability collapses into fact. One outcome survives, the rest vanish. Many worlds says nothing ever collapses. Observation doesn't end possibilities, it just tells you which branch you're standing on. Same math, wildly different conclusions. So, where does consciousness fit? If Copenhagen is right, then once observation ends, the story ends. No observer, no collapse, no continuum. But here's the catch. Consciousness cannot observe its own absence. The moment awareness would disappear is the moment it can no longer register anything at all. There's no internal experience of ending. From the inside, there is only before, and then something else. Many worlds takes advantage of that gap. Instead of ending, awareness simply continues in the branch where it still exists. Not because it chooses to, but because it can't experience the alternative. So, crossing the line between life and death might not feel like crossing anything. No tunnel, no darkness, no credits rolling, just continuity. From the outside, someone is gone. From the inside, the movie never cuts. This is why quantum immortality is sometimes called a glitch. Not a loophole in death, but a blind spot in experience. Copenhagen says the universe shuts the door. Many worlds says the hallway never ends. And physics still hasn't decided which one is right. Now, this is my favourite part because physicists genuinely do not agree here. And Copenhagen is practical, it works. It doesn't explode reality into infinity. Many worlds is cleaner mathematically, but emotionally unhinged. Now, the big issue is consciousness. Now, physics can describe particles beautifully, but the moment you ask what experience actually is, things get awkward fast. So, if this feels unresolved, good, it is. Quantum mechanics works incredibly well while quietly refusing to explain what's actually happening, which is exactly the kind of environment where weird ideas survive. The observer effect. At the heart of quantum mechanics is a deeply uncomfortable idea. Reality does not fully exist until it is observed. In the Copenhagen interpretation, particles exist as probabilities. Not things, not objects, just potential. Only when measured do they choose a state, position, direction, identity. This is known as the observer effect. But that raises a problem no equation can cleanly solve. What exactly counts as an observer? Is it a machine, a camera, a neuron firing in a brain, or is it awareness itself? If consciousness plays any role in collapsing reality, then it occupies a strange position. It's both inside the universe and partially responsible for how that universe resolves. Now, take that one step further. If observation is required for reality to finalize, then consciousness might never be able to observe its own absence. The moment awareness would disappear is the moment observation stops entirely. From the inside, there's no frame where non-existence is experienced. That moment simply never appears on the timeline of experience. From the outside, a life ends. From the inside, experience continues. Quantum immortality doesn't require consciousness to be special or magical. It only requires one rule. You can't witness a frame where you aren't there. So, maybe awareness doesn't jump worlds. Maybe it never needs to. Maybe reality simply refuses to show consciousness the scene where it exists, like a movie that keeps playing as long as someone is watching and quietly skips the frame where the screen goes dark. And this is where things get weird in a subtle way. Physics is very clear about particles. It's extremely unclear about observers. And that gap is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. To be clear, no scientist is saying consciousness controls the universe like a remote control. That's not what this is. This is about limits, about what experience can and cannot include. You never experience being asleep. You experience falling asleep and waking up. Death might be the same kind of blind spot. Also, yes, this section tends to break comment sections. You've been warned. The quantum suicide experiment. Now we arrive at the thought experiment that made physicists deeply uncomfortable. It's called quantum suicide. Imagine a device connected to a quantum event. If the particle spins one way, the device does nothing. If it spins the other way, the device instantly ends the experiment. From the outside, observers see exactly what probability predicts. Each activation produces survival or failure at random. Over time, the odds catch up. But from the inside, something strange may happen. The participant never experiences the outcome where awareness ends. There is only survival, again and again. Under the many worlds interpretation, each trigger splits reality. In many branches, the experiment ends. In at least one, it doesn't. And if awareness only continues in branches where it continues, that surviving branch is the only one the participant ever experiences. To outside observers, this looks horrifying. To the participant, it feels completely normal. Just another moment, then another. Quantum immortality isn't about defying death. It's about perspective. From the outside, death is real and final. From the inside, experience appears continuous. Now, physicists proposed this experiment not because they wanted it performed, but because it exposes a strange implication if many worlds is taken literally. Even its original proponents later warned that this doesn't mean you should expect to survive, only that logic gets weird when observers are part of the system. This is also the point where physics runs out of equations and philosophy takes over, because no experiment tells us how consciousness behaves across branches. No soul, no intervention, just probability, branching reality, and a question about what it means to experience anything at all. And that's why the experiment is never meant to be attempted. It isn't brave, it isn't profound. It's a mirror, held up to rules we already accept and don't fully understand. Alright, quick public service announcement. This is a thought experiment. No one should ever do this, ever. Physicists bring it up to stress test interpretations, not reality. If this makes you uncomfortable, good, it's supposed to. And what's fascinating is that nothing supernatural is required, just probability branching and perspective. From the outside, you're a statistic. From the inside, you're a continuous story, if the story continues at all. That doesn't mean you're immortal in any practical sense. It means experience may have blind spots, and this might be one of them, which is unsettling, but also kind of poetic. The consciousness continuum. If the quantum suicide thought experiment reveals anything, it's this. Consciousness behaves less like a switch and more like a current. It doesn't stop, it flows. If awareness always continues along the branch where it remains aware, then consciousness itself may not be tied to a single body or timeline. It may be something more abstract, a process, a pattern that persists as long as conditions allow it to. Across cultures, people who come close to death often describe the same thing. a flash, a shift, a sense of continuity rather than an ending. Science explains this with brain chemistry and survival mechanisms, and that explanation may be entirely correct. But the experience itself still raises a question. Why does awareness feel uninterrupted? Quantum immortality offers a possibility, not an answer. That consciousness is not restarted, it's redirected. Some physicists and philosophers have speculated that the self might behave like a quantum system, not a soul in the spiritual sense, but a field of information, a pattern that collapses in one reality and remains coherent in another. If that sounds familiar, it should. Reincarnation stories, simulation resets, digital consciousness. Even the idea of an afterlife as a continuation rather than a destination. They all describe the same intuition, that experience does not end, it transitions. Quantum immortality doesn't claim these ideas are true, it suggests they may be echoes of the same underlying problem, how awareness persists in a universe governed by probability. If reality branches endlessly, then consciousness may simply ride the branches where it can still ride, like a surfer staying upright on a wave that never quite crashes. Not eternal life, just uninterrupted experience. Right, this is the part where people start saying things like, "So you're saying I'm immortal?" No, please don't put that on a t-shirt. What this section is really about is continuity, not survival. Experience feels continuous. Physics doesn't fully explain why. Near-death experiences are not proof of anything supernatural, they're experiences. But when similar experiences pop up across cultures and centuries, it's at least worth asking why the story feels the same. Think of it less like magic and more like software behavior. If a process can't load a frame where it doesn't exist, it just keeps running. Still creepy, still fascinating. The Immortality Paradox. Now comes the part quantum immortality fans don't always talk about: the cost. If consciousness always continues along the narrow paths where survival is possible, then over time, those paths become rarer, more fragile, more isolated. You survive the accident, the illness, the unlikely event again and again. But probability is ruthless. Each survival narrows the future. Each branch sheds alternatives. Eventually, awareness may find itself in realities where survival is technically possible, but barely. Worlds where everything else has fallen away. Friends age and disappear. Civilizations rise and fade. Stars burn out. And yet, awareness continues. This is the paradox. Immortality as loneliness. Consciousness stranded on the thinnest thread of a probability, watching a universe grow colder and quieter. Not eternal youth, not endless adventure, just persistence. From the outside, nothing unusual is happening. The universe behaves exactly as physics predicts. Entropy increases, complexity fades. From the inside, experience stretches on. Some philosophers argue this alone is reason enough to doubt quantum immortality. A universe that allows infinite subjective survival may be fundamentally unstable or incomplete. Others argue the opposite, that awareness would never reach that extreme, because long before then, consciousness itself might change, fragment, or lose coherence. Either way, the paradox forces a sobering thought. If quantum immortality were true, then death might not be the scariest outcome. Endless continuation might be. Yeah, this is where the fun theory gets existentially expensive. People hear immortality and think superhero. Physics hears it and thinks heat death. Now, if consciousness really did keep going forever, it wouldn't look like a movie montage. It would look like waiting, a lot of waiting, which is why most physicists are very comfortable saying, cool idea, probably not how reality works. Still, the paradox is useful. It stress tests our assumptions about experience, time, and endings. Also, if this section made you slightly uncomfortable, congratulations, that means it worked. The scientific reality check. At this point, it's important to step back from the edge of the idea and look at where science actually stands. Because, as seductive as quantum immortality sounds, most physicists don't lose sleep over it. The Copenhagen Interpretation remains the dominant framework in physics classrooms and laboratories. Not because it's beautiful, but because it works. It predicts outcomes, it avoids infinity, and doesn't require splitting the universe every time an atom wiggles. Under Copenhagen, reality exists as probability until it's measured. Once observed, the wave collapses into a single outcome. And when the observer is gone, there's no further experience, the story simply ends. Many worlds, on the other hand, is mathematically elegant and philosophically unsettling. It removes collapse entirely. Every outcome happens, every possibility exists. The universe constantly branches endlessly. Now, physicists like Max Tegmark, Sean Carroll and David Deutsch have argued many worlds solves deep problems in quantum mechanics, but even they admit something crucial. It explains the math. It does not explain consciousness. That gap is where quantum immortality lives. There's no experiment that can confirm it, no measurement that can falsify it. From the outside, it looks identical to ordinary probability. People survive unlikely events all the time. Most do not. Science demands predictions that can be tested. Quantum immortality offers a narrative that can only ever be experienced privately. And private experience, no matter how compelling, is not data. So, officially, quantum immortality remains what it has always been, a thought experiment, a philosophical stress test, a way of asking uncomfortable questions about what observation really means. Not proof of eternal life, not evidence of secret survival, just a reminder that physics doesn't know what awareness is, and that ignorance leaves room for strange ideas to breathe. Now, this is the grounding wire section, because if we don't plug this thing into reality, it floats away like a balloon with opinions. And most physicists are very chill about this idea. They'll say, interesting idea, cool math, but where's the experiment? And they're right. Quantum immortality isn't an accepted science. It's a philosophical consequence of one interpretation of quantum mechanics, not a promise, not a loophole. But here's the thing. Consciousness still isn't explained at all. And whenever science hits an explanatory wall, weird ideas tend to hang out nearby. The observer's mirror. Now turn the idea around. What if quantum immortality isn't about personal survival at all? What if it's about observation itself? In both Copenhagen and many worlds, the observer plays a central role, either collapsing reality into a single outcome or branching into countless perspectives. But zoom out far enough, and something else appears. Reality isn't observed by one mind, it's observed by billions. Every second, human attention locks in shared experiences. The same sky, the same history, the same consensus timeline. We agree on what happened because we saw it together. That collective observation stabilizes reality. When one observer disappears, the shared world continues. The story goes on. But from that observer's perspective, if awareness truly cannot observe its own absence, then experience might not end. It might simply decouple from the shared timeline. Copenhagen would call that collapse. Many worlds would call it continuity. Two descriptions of the same event, viewed from opposite sides. Now, this reframes quantum immortality as something less dramatic and more subtle. Not a cheat code for eternal life, but a feature of how perspective works in a probabilistic universe. Reality doesn't guarantee survival. It guarantees continuity of observation where observation is possible. The mirror is this. Physics describes the universe from the outside. Consciousness experiences it from the inside. Quantum immortality may simply be what happens when those two views don't line up perfectly. Not a bug, not a miracle, just a mismatch between equations and experience. I think this is my favourite part because it doesn't ask you to believe anything spooky, it just says perspective matters. And from the outside, people die. From the inside, experience always feels continuous until it doesn't. And we never get to experience the doesn't part. So maybe quantum immortality isn't a secret about the universe, maybe it's a limitation of being conscious inside it. We're really good at observing reality. We're terrible at observing the absence of ourselves. That alone might explain the whole thing. The Deathless Observer. So, where does that leave us? Maybe immortality isn't about living forever in the way myths promise. Maybe it's something quieter, stranger. Maybe it's about never being able to witness your own ending. Under the Copenhagen Interpretation, the universe resolves itself only when observed. When observation stops, the wave collapses and the story ends. Final, clean, no encore. Under many worlds, the wave never collapses at all. Every possibility unfolds, every ending exists, and somewhere there is always a version where awareness continues. And between those two ideas walks consciousness itself. And not as a particle, not as a force, but as a witness that never experiences its own absence. And if death is the moment when experience ends, then from the inside, that moment may never arrive. Not because it doesn't happen, but because there is no perspective left to record it. The frame changes, the scene cuts, and awareness finds itself in the next moment that can still be experienced. Not proof of survival, not a loophole in physics, just the strange consequence of being something that observes reality from the inside while physics describes it from the outside. Maybe that's the final glitch. Not that we escape death, but that death can never be part of our experience. Not because we're special, but because experience itself has rules. The universe doesn't promise eternity. It only promises continuity where continuity is possible. So, maybe we're not passengers moving through reality. Maybe we're the eyes through which reality confirms itself, moment by moment, branch by branch. The light fades, the frame changes, but somewhere you blink and the story goes on. And that's where I like to leave it. Not with answers, definitely not with guarantees, but with perspective. And quantum immortality isn't telling you that you'll live forever. It's pointing out something way simpler and way weirder. You never experience non-experience. From the inside, life always feels continuous, until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, there's no one left to notice. So, maybe the afterlife isn't a place. Maybe it's just the next moment your awareness can still load. Or maybe not. Either way, reality is doing something clever, and we're stuck watching it. Okay, that was a lot to get our heads around. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. And if so, why not check this one out on screen at the end? And if you'd like to support the channel further, I've just launched a Patreon site and YouTube memberships where you can get proper community chat and exclusive content on Mondays, link in the description below. And as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and I'd greatly appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below of videos you would like to see next time. Okay, my friends, stay safe and until next time, stay curious.